Hey folks, welcome back to True Crime Stories, where we cover the most thrilling true crime stories. Before we get going, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for me. Thanks. And now let's get into today's story.
All right, so get ready, because today we're going to dive into the very intriguing case of Sarah Wright.
Oh, yeah, this one's a real head scratcher.
Picture this, okay? Seraphine, a charming little coastal town, beautiful, breathtaking cliffs, vibrant marine life.
Sounds idyllic.
Right. But, as we will discover, it also has a pretty dark history of, well, tragedies.
Ah, so there's more to this town than meets the eye. I like it.
Oh, yeah. And we have got a whole stack of stuff to go through today. Witness testimonies, forensic reports, even some journal entries to unpack.
Ooh, journal entries. Those are always juicy. Lots of good stuff in there.
So, our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to unravel this whole mystery surrounding Sarah Wright's death.
Hmm.
What do you think? Think we're up to the task?
I love a good challenge. And this case has all the elements. A picturesque setting, a suspicious death, and a whole cast of characters with secrets. Sounds like my kind of deep dive. Plus, Seraphine itself almost becomes a character in this whole thing.
Right. It's true. Those dramatic cliffs, so beautiful yet dangerous, they really mirror the drama that unfolds.
Oh, for sure. It's like Agatha Christie with a touch of Jaws, wouldn't you say?
Totally. The tension between that perfect little town facade and all those secrets bubbling underneath, it's captivating. Okay, so let's get down to it. Sarah Wright. She was a passionate environmental activist found dead at the base of those very cliffs.
After a particularly violent storm, no less.
Oh, yeah. It was a rough one.
You know, you really hit the nail on the head when you said passionate about Sarah. She was deeply, and I mean deeply, committed to protecting Seraphine's marine life.
Yeah, but that dedication put her on a collision course with some very powerful people.
Especially those folks in the fishing industry.
Okay, so let's rewind to the night of the storm.
Okay, setting the scene.
Exactly. And this isn't just any storm, okay?
Mhm.
It's one of those cinematic storms, you know what I mean? Wind howling, waves crashing against the cliffs, tension you could cut with a knife.
The backdrop really does add to the mystery of it all.
Yeah. And it was the same night as a very heated community meeting about new fishing regulations, too. Sarah, being the strong advocate for stricter rules that she was, she claimed there was illegal fishing going on.
Right under everyone's noses, she said.
That really stirred things up, especially with Alicia Granger.
Right, Alicia. Deeply involved in the local fishermen's collective. Those accusations, they hit close to home for her. It was a threat to her family's legacy, their livelihood.
Yeah, and their clash, it wasn't just about the policies themselves.
It was way more personal than that. This was a battle between Sarah's environmentalism and the age-old fishing traditions that basically formed Seraphine's identity.
Imagine this. The community meeting ends, everyone is on edge, the storm is raging outside, and Sarah. Witnesses say they saw her pacing near the cliffs,
Agitated.
but determined.
Yeah, almost like she was wrestling with the storm itself.
That detail about her pacing near the cliff, that's crucial. Some people even said they heard shouts, maybe a struggle, right before she vanished into that storm. Makes you wonder, was she meeting someone? Or did someone confront her out there?
Yeah. A lot of questions swirling around that night.
So, let's fast forward to the next morning.
Uh-oh.
A group of fishermen are out checking their traps.
Yeah.
They discover Sarah's body. At the base of the cliffs, grim start to the day.
Definitely a shock that rippled through the entire town. Deputy Luke Ramirez, new to Seraphine, eager to prove himself, gets thrown right into the thick of it, wants to play by the book, but quickly realizes he's stepped into, well, a bit of a hornet's nest of small-town secrets.
Baptism by fire. Poor guy. So he gets to the scene, and picture this. Crashing waves, the body on the rocks, the whispers of the crowd gathering.
It's like a scene straight out of one of those gritty crime dramas.
Right. And in all that chaos, some key pieces of evidence start to pop up.
Okay, like what? Give me the good stuff.
There's Sarah's watch, broken, stopped at 10:12 p.m.
Right around the time she was last seen leaving the community center.
Uh-huh. Then there are these scuff marks near the edge of the cliff. Suggests maybe a struggle happened.
And of course, that palpable tension, that unspoken feeling that everyone knows more than they are letting on.
Small towns, am I right?
Always full of secrets.
Okay, so those initial interviews, they must have been interesting. The fishermen who found the body, what did they have to say?
Well, their reactions, they were a mixed bag. Some were genuinely upset, sad. Others seemed evasive, like they were holding back, afraid of getting caught in the crosshairs.
Did their stories line up?
It was like they were reciting something, rehearsed, vague. Just a little too off.
Always a red flag. Speaking of interesting characters, let's talk about Mark Thorne.
Mark, our ruggedly handsome, brooding lighthouse keeper.
What's his story? What's his connection to Sarah?
Their relationship, it was complicated. Lots of unspoken feelings and maybe even some shared secrets. And Mark's got a past that's linked to some, shall we say, questionable dealings in the fishing industry.
So he's a man of mystery, huh? Potentially with some skeletons in his closet. Where was he during the storm? Was he safe in his lighthouse or was he out and about?
He claims he was alone in the lighthouse, tending to the light and all that. But something about his alibi feels a bit shaky. And the more we learn about his past, well, the more suspicious his behavior that night seems.
Right, right. Okay, and then there's Greg Morgan, the fisherman. He's got a bit of a reputation for being a hothead, right?
Greg, he's our wild card. His resentment towards Sarah, oh, that was no secret. He saw her activism as a direct threat, an outsider trying to destroy the only life he knew. And witnesses at the meeting, they said he was loud, confrontational even, in his anger at Sarah and her quote-unquote crusade.
So we've got simmering resentment, a stormy night, a whole cast of characters with secrets.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And just when you think it can't get any more complicated.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, yeah. We have Brenda Talbot.
Who's Brenda?
Brenda is a local journalist, a childhood friend of Sarah's, and she is absolutely determined to dig deeper, convinced there's more to this whole thing than what's on the surface.
Oh, I like her already. She's given off major Nancy Drew vibes.
Right. So what does she uncover? What shakes things up?
Well, Brenda, being the smart cookie she is, she starts piecing together Sarah's final days, talking to folks, digging into her life, and what she finds. It suggests Sarah might have been onto something bigger than just illegal fishing.
What do you mean?
Brenda's investigation, it leads her to believe there's a whole hidden group operating in Seraphine. A group determined to protect their interests no matter the cost.
Ooh, a shadowy cabal pulling strings from the shadows. I knew it. This is getting good.
It is, isn't it? So now we have a potential conspiracy, conflicting alibis, a whole town on edge.
Where do we go from here?
Well, next we dive even deeper into the forensics, the whispers from witnesses, and the unraveling of lies that brings us closer to the truth. Or at least a version of it. And trust me, the deeper we go, the more twists and turns we are going to find. So buckle up. This ride's just getting started.
So we left off with a whole lot of suspicion and a hint of a possible conspiracy. Let's dig into the hard evidence. What can forensics tell us about the night Sarah died?
The autopsy, that really sheds light on things. It confirmed blunt force trauma, consistent with a fall.
So she fell.
Seems that way. But here's the thing. Sarah's blood alcohol level, it was surprisingly low.
So she wasn't intoxicated.
Nope. Which means that whole theory about her being drunk and just stumbling off the cliff out the window.
That makes her death way less likely to have been an accident.
Right. It shifts the focus from a tragic misstep to, well, the possibility of something more sinister. Foul play. Remember her watch?
The broken one, yeah.
Stopped at 10.12, right around when she was last seen. Forensics found scratches, little nicks on the glass.
So someone grabbed it from her.
Maybe. Or she was defending herself. It definitely points to a struggle.
That's a chilling thought.
Mm.
And you said forensics found something else on the watch.
Fibers. And get this, they matched the clothing of Greg Morgan.
Our hot-headed fisherman friend. So we have a possible motive. A shaky alibi. And now forensic evidence. Things aren't looking good for him. But what about Alicia? Didn't she want Sarah silenced too?
Remember those soil samples from the cliff edge?
Yeah.
They matched soil found on Alicia Granger's property.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You're saying she was at the cliffs that night, but she claimed she was home.
You got it. That little discrepancy plus the soil evidence puts Alicia right back in the hot seat.
This is getting complicated.
2
suspects, questionable alibis, and then there's that whole shadowy group Sarah was looking into.
It's a real tangled web, isn't it?
And I'm not sure who this spider is.
Okay, what about Mark Thorne, the lighthouse keeper? He had a pretty close relationship with Sarah. Maybe he knows something.
Mark's story, it's like everyone else's. Full of holes. Insists he was alone in the lighthouse doing his lighthouse keeper thing. But people saw him outside, near the cliffs, around the time Sarah vanished.
Another shaky alibi. But his motive, it's not as clear as Alicia's or Greg's. Maybe he was trying to protect Sarah, or maybe he was protecting himself. What did the investigators find when they questioned him?
Well, in Mark's lighthouse, they found an old dive suit with these, mysterious stains. Mysterious stains on a dive suit. Okay, this Sounds ominous. What kind of stains? And how does a dive suit even connect to Sarah's death?
They weren't sure what the stains were at first, needed more tests. But remember, Sarah, she wasn't just an activist. She led tours part-time. One of those tours, it involved exploring those tide pools at the base of the cliffs.
Wait, are you suggesting there's a connection between the dive suit, those tide pools, and Sarah's death?
It's definitely a possibility. What if she saw something she shouldn't have down there while exploring? Something or someone that put her in danger.
3 suspects, secrets, and a dive suit with mysterious stains. I don't even know what to think anymore. It's like peeling an onion, you just find more layers.
And just when you think it can't get any more twisted, Brenda, our journalist friend, she stumbles on something that changes everything. Sarah's journal.
She kept a journal.
Oh, yeah. And this wasn't just some diary filled with thoughts and feelings. This was detailed, meticulous, an account of everything she'd uncovered. Names, dates, times, even the illegal fishing stuff she witnessed. And towards the end, threats.
Threats.
From who? Sounded like they were from that secret group. Seems her digging was getting a little too close for comfort.
Wow. Sarah wasn't just watching from the sidelines. She was actively investigating. Incredibly brave, but also very dangerous.
It definitely paints a chilling picture. A woman who knew she was putting herself at risk to expose the truth. And it raises the stakes of the whole case. This wasn't just an accident.
It sounds like someone wanted to silence her.
Yeah.
Permanently. Okay, so we've got a possible conspiracy, threats, a dead activist. It's like something straight out of a movie.
And just when you think it can't get any more intense, they figure out what those mysterious stains on the dive suit are.
Don't leave me hanging. What were they?
Blood. Human blood. And DNA testing confirmed it belonged to Sarah Wright.
Oh my God. Mark Thorne, the guy who supposedly cared about Sarah, had her blood on his dive suit. This changes everything. It makes him the prime suspect.
Doesn't it? This really throws a wrench into things. Was Mark involved all along? What was he doing with that dive suit? And how does all of this connect back to that group Sarah was investigating?
This whole case, it's like a puzzle box. Every time you think you got a piece in place, another layer pops up. I can't wait to see how this all unfolds.
Oh, you're in for a wild ride. The final part of this investigation is full of twists and turns, trust me.
Welcome back. So last time, things took a pretty shocking turn with that whole, Sarah's blood on Mark Thorne's dive suit thing. Talk about a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it definitely changed the direction of the case. Our brooding lighthouse keeper suddenly became suspect number 1.
Made everything we thought we knew about him seem like a lie.
The investigators, though, they were smart about it. They didn't just jump in and accuse him right away. During his interrogation, they played it cool, presented him with, random pieces of evidence, witness statements, the watch analysis, even the soil samples from Alicia's property.
Trying to trip him up.
Exactly. See if he'd slip up, say something he shouldn't know. It was a real game of cat and mouse.
And did it work?
As the interrogation went on, Mark, he got more and more agitated. His story, it started to fall apart, those inconsistencies, the alibi, they became super obvious. He kept saying he didn't do it, but everything else, his body language, his tone, it was like he was screaming guilty.
So they were closing in on him.
Like a slowly tightening net. And then they hit him with the lab report, the one confirming that the blood on the suit was Sarah's.
And how'd he react? Did he confess?
At first, it was just shock, disbelief. He denied it, tried to come up with some explanation, but the weight of that evidence, it was just too much. He kind of snapped.
Snapped? Like, what do you mean?
It wasn't like a confession, not right away. It was more like all these pent-up emotions just came pouring out. He talked about his past, his involvement with that group Sarah was investigating, how guilty he felt about it.
Wait, so Mark was connected to this group, the one exploiting the very ocean Sarah was trying to protect.
Yeah. He said he'd been trying to get away from them, but they had a real hold on him. Said he met Sarah at the cliffs that night, they argued. Things got physical, and she fell.
He admitted to that. Struggling with Sarah on the edge of a cliff in the middle of a storm.
He insisted that her falling was an accident, though. Said he was trying to keep her from going too close to the edge, and they grappled, she slipped.
Okay, so it was a tragic accident, fueled by an argument, a stormy night. Does that explain everything, though? Well, what about the blood on the suit?
Yeah, that's where his story gets a little fuzzy. He claims that after she fell, he panicked. Couldn't call for help, didn't know what to do, so he went back to the lighthouse, grabbed his old dive suit, and climbed down to the tide pools to look for her to see if she was alive.
He climbed down there in that weather.
He said he found her, held her, cried. That's how her blood got on the suit.
That's a pretty heartbreaking story. Did the investigators buy it?
They charged him with Sarah's murder. The trial was a huge media circus. Brenda Talbot, our journalist, her coverage put Seraphine on the map. It wasn't just about the crime itself anymore. It became this whole thing about conservation versus tradition, small town politics, all those secrets coming out into the open.
It's never just about the crime, is it? There's always a bigger context.
Exactly. And in this case, the trial really divided the town. Some folks thought Mark was innocent, just a guy in the wrong place at the wrong time. Others, they thought he was a cold-blooded killer.
A town divided by grief and suspicion. That's heavy. So what happened? What was the verdict?
After weeks of testimony, media frenzy, back and forth, the jury found Mark Thorne not guilty of murder.
Not guilty. But the blood. His story didn't even make sense.
The defense, they were good. They said the blood was circumstantial, that Mark's explanation, even though it sounded a little far-fetched, could have been true. And the prosecution, they just couldn't prove for sure that he'd intentionally hurt Sarah.
So he walked.
He did. But there was a catch. While he was acquitted of murder, they got him on obstruction of justice. For covering up her death, all that, he ended up doing time. But the question of what really happened to Sarah that night, whether it was an accident or something worse, it remains unanswered.
Justice, but not really.
And the whole thing, it still hangs over Seraphine. Some people think Mark got off easy. Others think he was a scapegoat. It's a case that shows you the power of secrets and how a single tragedy can really impact a whole community.
This deep dive has been a real roller coaster. We've had evidence, alibis, unanswered questions. What stands out to you the most about this whole case?
For me, it's that we never really got a definitive answer. Was Sarah's death an accident or was it intentional? We might never know. It's kind of like the truth got lost in the storm.
We've learned a lot today, not just about a crime, but about human nature, the clash between doing what's right and protecting what you know, and the power of secrets to linger. What do you think, listener? What are your thoughts on the mystery of Sarah Wright?